What should you be doing or what shouldn't you be doing when responding to waitlist offers? Today, we are going to dive into the do's and don'ts of waitlist responses. I know so many of you are on waitlists. Maybe you're on one waitlist or two waitlists. Maybe you're on 10 waitlists. Whether you're on two waitlists or 10 waitlists, we're going to take a little bit of time just to walk through how you should and shouldn't be responding to offers. We're going to talk about letters of continued interest. We're going to talk about withdrawing from offers, which is always good etiquette, and how you can navigate that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about just your consistent or not consistent communication with the offices of admission. So, the first thing that I want to talk to you about is letters of continued interest. And so, the past few weeks, I have been doing a lot of reviewing students' letters of continued interest before they are sent off. That's just the season that we're in. And there are some common mistakes, some don'ts that I want to talk to you about, but then there are also some really great gems, some do's that I want to encourage you to do. But let's start with the don'ts. The don't, I don't want your letter to be super generic, right? I read letters sometimes, and they're supposed to be a letter of continued interest. And sometimes I'm not convinced at all. I'm not convinced you want to go to that school. I'm not convinced you know anything about the school. I'm not convinced you haven't just copy and pasted the same thing to 12 schools. And if I am not convinced, they're not going to be convinced, right? They're reading hundreds and hundreds of these letters of continued interest. And you don't need to be thinking, how is my letter going to stand out? That's not really the point, but it should be genuine. Um, and I think sometimes students are like, well, I don't really know why I'm on this wait list. I don't really know why I want to go to this school. It's ranked 20. I don't know. It's ranked 15. I'm not sure. I just want to go because it's ranked higher. Yeah, I would suggest that you do some soul searching, right? Because that's not a good reason to go to a school. This is going to be your home for the next 3 years. This is going to be your alumni community. This is going to be the place where you are shaped into the attorney that's going to impact the communities that you care about. You have to have reasons for why you want to go to that school. And if you still don't know anything about the school, you have not been listening, you did not go to info sessions, you have not created relationships with admissions, you did not do any kind of deep dive into the school and the offerings. If you're like, I really don't know anything besides the fact that it's located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Shout out to Tulsa. I don't even know, right? Like if you just know the city, um, learn more. There's no time like the present to learn more. There are probably really great things about that school that would make it a good fit for you. I don't want you to just copy and paste what's on the website. So I see this so often. Students really, I just like, it's like word vomit from the website. And anyone could say that, right? So, there's these two litmus tests, right? The first is this so generic that I could use this for any school? And the second is this so generic that any student could write this? Swap my name with someone else's name, same letter. If any school could be, the school that you're talking about in the letter, or if any student could be writing what you're saying, your letter is too generic. And usually that comes from just taking what's on the website, copy pasting it into your letter, and being like, boom, this is why I want to come. Get to know people. Have conversations with people. If you haven't already done so, reach out to affinity groups. You can find them on Instagram. Reach out, to alumni if there's some, like, let's say you went to Sunnyside University for college and you're applying to Sunny State Law School. See if there are any alumni from Sunnyside University who went to Sunny State Law School, and they can talk about their experience or their transition. Alumni love talking about their experience. Don't just reach out to random alumni on LinkedIn because that's a little weird and creepy. But maybe if they're alumni of your current school, or maybe if they're in the same sorority or fraternity, or like I said, an affinity group, the Black Law Student Association, the Muslim Law Student Association, La Alianza, LGBT group, whatever it is, like try to find some genuine connections. We talked a little bit last time on how you make decisions, right? And when we were talking about how you make decisions, one of the things that I had said was you want to be thinking about what communities you could find your home in. Now, if you're a waitlist student, it might feel a little different because you haven't been accepted to that school, but you still want to think about what are the communities I would join. Let me reach out to them, and then maybe they can tell me even more reasons for why the school would be a great fit that I can include in my letter. You want to have some personal reasons. Listen, these letters are not long, right? This is like one page, double spaced kind of max. So it's like a paragraph. So I'm really asking for like maybe 3 to 4 sentences, maybe 3 sentences. You can find 3 to 4 sentences that are actually unique and genuine and personal and feels like you're having a conversation. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever, gone on dates. Hope probably, hopefully, some of you have gone on dates. And if you haven't, like, dating's cool. It's cool. But when you're sometimes this was not my experience, but I know that sometimes people go on a lot of first dates, like with different people. And maybe you're like texting people, and maybe you went out with Sarah on Tuesday, and you went out with Katie on Thursday, because they're still in the first date category, right? You don't want to accidentally text Sarah about Katie, right? Or say the same things. Like, you want to make Sarah feel like you were really listening to her at dinner, and that she was really great, and you're texting her like things that, like, it feels like you're having a conversation, like you actually want to get to know Sarah. And maybe you're doing, something similar with Katie. I'm not advocating for like having multiple girlfriends, but just, again, not my experience, but I know that sometimes people, when they go on first dates, they go on like a lot of first dates, and before you kind of like get exclusive and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, and this is a very, very weird analogy, but just go with me. Okay? So, you want to find the special things about every school. It's like courting, right? And you want them to feel like, wow, they actually like us. They actually care about our school. They actually want to come here, and not they're just writing it because, some girl on YouTube said you needed to write letters of continued interest. So here's my letter of continued interest, but I don't really care, right? So that's really important. Um, Now, what are some do's though of letter of continued interest, right? Like, what do you want to try to do? I'm not going to beat it at horse. Obviously, you want to be personal. You want to try to include some updates, and this can be another place that's really hard for students because they might say, like, listen, I have not done anything. I want you to try to think broadly about updates. It doesn't always have to be like literally my position at work changed. But it could be I have been taking on a new role in a project, or I now have this volunteer opportunity, or maybe I've been mentoring someone, or maybe I've been bettering myself. I've been doing some reading or self reflection. I've been thinking more deeply about the reasons why I want to go to law school. I've been engaged in conversations, whatever it could be, because they have your application and the things that you put there, and they did waitlist you. And so sometimes having some additional things could be really helpful. But I wouldn't fret if you're like, there's really nothing in my life that has changed whatsoever. I'm sure that probably, especially if you applied in the fall, it's been like 6, 9 months. There's probably something that's a little different. But even if it's exactly the same, then you just want to focus more on like those reasons why you want to come to the school. Um, a letter of continued interest is not really going to make or break your waitlist decision, right? There's no one that they were thinking of like just keeping on the waitlist and denying, and then they get your letter of continued interest and like, oh, okay, right? But it can help as they're making those decisions, especially when it comes to yield, because sometimes you're waitlisted because they don't know if you actually want to go to the school, right? And they want to protect their yield. And so sometimes, like, taking the extra effort to write a genuine letter, not a letter that seems like it's copy and pasted, but a genuine letter can make them feel, okay, actually, yeah, I do think she wants to come here. I feel good about giving her this acceptance, because they only want to accept people off the wait list who are going to come. it it's a very different game, right? Like, of course you accept lots of people, and you understand that, you might send out 800 acceptance letters. 800 people aren't going to say yes, not even to Harvard Law School, right? Some people are going to say no. But when they're accepting people off of the wait list, they really only want to accept people who are going to say yes, because time is of the essence, right? And time is money. And, if they spend all this time and energy accepting people who are going to say no, then that's people that they couldn't have been accepting that said yes, right? Someone else could have gotten that call off the wait list. So that's what they're really looking for. Is this person going to say yes? And that brings me to my second point. When is it time to withdraw? So you can only go to one school. And like, duh, Sydney, duh, right? You can only go to one school. Why do I say this? Because I think sometimes students lose track of that. And I'm asking you to be honest with yourself. If you are on 10 different wait lists, look at the schools that you've already gotten accepted to and compare each one, like literally one by one. Let's say you've gotten into schools A, B, and C, and you're on the wait list for D through G. Now tell yourself, am I going to go to school D over A, B, or C? If you would instead, if you're like, actually, I wouldn't, even if I got off this wait list, I'm probably still going to choose one of the schools I've already gotten into. It's time to withdraw. Why? Because someone else can have your spot, right? Like, you don't need to hold a spot. Like, in elementary school where they save your spot in line or whatever, like, you don't need 10 spots in line. You can only be in one line. You can only go to one school. So do yourself and do your fellow applicants a favor and withdraw, right? Like, literally ask yourself that question, because sometimes if we're going to be real with ourselves, we know, yeah, I'm not really going to go to that school. It might be geography, right? Like, oh, I thought I wanted to go to California, but if we're going to be honest, I'm probably going to choose one of the East Coast schools I got into. Great. Withdraw politely. What does that look like? Thank you so much for, the offer of staying on your wait list. I really appreciate it. At this time, however, I am going to withdraw from the wait list, and choose a different offer. That's it. Now you've opened up a spot for a fellow applicant, and that school might be their first choice school, right? You want to be a courteous and kind applicant in this process. Holding on to a wait list spot just to hold on to it doesn't do anyone any good, right? And it's like still sort of occupying some like space in your brain. Even if it's a small amount of space, there is still some brain space that's like being held on by that school. And I would just encourage you to let it go. And the same can be true for offers. If you have offers to 10 schools and you know in your heart, like it's really between these three schools, it is time to respectfully decline 7 schools' offer of admissions. Now, you may want to keep some of them if you're thinking about scholarship negotiations. That could be, a good reason to keep some other schools. But, all of you, many students I've talked to, they have schools on their list that they're just not going to go to. And maybe it's not even the one that offered them a lot of money either. They're just not going to go. It is super time to respectfully decline, especially if you're holding on to an accepted spot that you know you're not going to take. If you let it go, it will open up a waitlist spot. In some instances, right? Like, most wait lists, they move after the deposit deadline. Why do most wait lists move after the deposit deadline? Because that's when they know how many spots that they actually have, right? Like, schools are waiting to see how many people are going to say yes and how many people are going to say no. And if you know it's a no, then you need to tell the school so that someone else can have that spot. That's really important. So you definitely want to make sure that whether it's a waitlist offer that you know you're not going to take because you're going to take one of your other accepted offers, and you could stay on some wait lists but not others, right? You might say, listen, I like school A, B, and C that I've gotten into more than school D. But if I got into school E, who I don't know, that changes the game. Okay, you stay on school's E's waitlist. You withdraw from school D's waitlist, right? And maybe it's not A, B, and C. Maybe it's just A and B. Then you politely decline school C's acceptance, right? But you want to be courteous applicant in this process. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about is just how much communication to have when you're on the wait list. So we have talked about letters of continued interest. We've talked about some do's or don'ts. We've talked about withdrawing, but how much conversation, how much interaction should you be having if you're on the wait list? I always say this depends. This depends a bit on the school. One of the first questions I love for students to ask, when they're waitlisted is, how often would you like to hear from waitlist candidates? Some schools will tell you, we want to hear from you every 4 to 6 weeks. Some schools will say just one time, just once. We'll contact you. Don't contact us, we'll contact you, right? You want to follow instructions. There was an admissions dean a while ago that she was so smart. She said, we are also judging how you interact in the application process as part of your application process. Can you follow rules? Can you make good judgments? You're trying to be an attorney, right? If you can't follow rules and you have poor judgment, it's not going to reflect well on your application as a whole. So you want to make sure you're having good judgment. It doesn't mean that you need to be afraid of admissions. You don't need to be afraid of admissions. You don't need to be intimidated to contact them, but you don't need to be emailing them every week. You don't need to be obsessing. Oh my God, what more can I do? 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 Because I'm going to be quite honest with you, sometimes there isn't anything more for you to do. Sometimes the answer is to wait and just sit down and trust that you're going to get into the schools that you're meant to get into. But I know that sometimes students, they feel like, well, I already wrote a letter of continued interest. What else can I do? What else can I do? And like sometimes it's like nothing. Nothing. They have all the information they need to make a good decision. Maybe that's a decision in your favor, maybe that's not, but sometimes there's not more that you can do, and trying to do more is not going to help your case, right? So if it's a school that is open to you reaching out to them every 4 to 6 weeks, great. You can do that with another letter of continued interest or just an update. If it's a school that wants less or fewer contact points, then that's okay too. But you just want to be respectful and understand the fact that they may not have any new information right now. I mentioned that a lot of times waitlists move after deposit deadlines. So they just literally just like you've sent this letter of continued interest, they've received it, they're very happy, but they don't have any new information. They don't know any more about how many spots they have. They might not have even started pulling from their wait list yet because they don't know. In which case, there's nothing more for you to do because like the information that they're missing is not information that you have. The information that they're missing is information that they will have on their end. And until they get that information, they can't give you any new information. You see how that works? Like them first, then you. And so there's nothing more that you need to do because they're not in a position to best utilize even the information you're giving them. So you just have to wait, right? And so that's really important that you understand that there are also other factors in play here besides just yours. Sometimes it can be really easy to just think, my application. There's like a lot of applications. And there's also like institutional priorities, and they're trying to balance scholarships, and they're trying to figure out, if they're trying to grow their class or shrink their class. There's a lot of things that goes on into admissions. That's why I can never give you a black or white answer when it comes to, oh, if I do this, will I get in? If I do this, will I get off the wait list? Like a lot of it is, it depends. But that's because there's so many balls in the air, right, when it comes to admissions. And you don't see what's on the back end sometimes, right? We only see the front end, but there's a back end. And they've got a lot of pots on the stove in the back end. But it doesn't mean that they don't like you. That doesn't even mean that they're not going to take you off the wait list, right? They might be like, yes, you're our number one off the wait list. But they can't say that yet because they don't know fully yet, right? So you got to trust that if you do what you're supposed to do, you write a really compelling and personal letter of continued interest. You follow their guidelines for how often they want you to be contacting them. You're making meaningful updates. Maybe for some of you, that means you're taking an LSAT exam again, because that could really change a lot of things, to be honest with you. Sometimes just a higher LSAT score is all you need to get off the wait list. Sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is. And so, or a higher GPA, sometimes that's all you need to get off the wait list. So if you're taking care of things on your end, you have to trust that things are going to work out the way that they're supposed to. As always, if this was helpful, make sure you share it with a friend. Make sure you like and subscribe and rate and review. Leave a comment. I love comments. I'd love to get to know you in the comments. Shoot us an email. Let me know where you are in your journey. Let me know what you want to hear. If you want any more interviews with certain people, I love, love, love taking those suggestions. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week.